I'm going to give a thumbs up, and then we're going to start on Hansard, and then. Okay, welcome everybody. I'm Nikki Sharma. I'll be the chair today at MLA for Vancouver Hastings. We'll do a little bit of an introduction, but I first want to acknowledge that we're all gathered here today on the traditional territory of the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam people, and we think about that. And I would like everybody to think about that as we do our work. We have somebody calling in as well, MLA Alexis. And we'll just do maybe a quick go around and introduce ourselves, and then I'll tell you a little bit about how today's going to go. Doug, you want to start?
Yes, Doug Rowley, MLA for Nanaimo, North Cowichan.
And I'm Susie Chan, MLA for North Vancouver Seymour.
And I'm Ronna Ray Leonard. I am from Courtenay, Comox.
Trevor Helford, Surrey White Rock.
Dan Davies, MLA for Peace River North.
And Sonia Frisnow, MLA for Cowichan.
Okay. And Pam, did you want to go?
Sure. Pam Alexis, Abbotsford Mission, MLA. Thank you.
Okay. And our Deputy Chair, Shirley Bond, will be arriving a little bit late. She just caught a flight, or landed in her flight. So I want to welcome you on behalf of the committee here today from the BC Métis Federation. We have here Drake Henry, Health Project Coordinator, and Kevin Henry, Métis Community Health Coordinator. You'll have about 15 minutes to present, and we'll leave about the rest of the time, about 45 minutes for a good discussion. So over to you.
Thank you very much. Hello, my name is Drake Henry. I'm from North Vancouver. This is my uncle, Kevin Henry. We're here today to present on the illicit drug toxicity and overdose crisis impacts on BCMF members and partner communities. So far, the team is myself and Kevin Henry. We've actually done some previous COVID-19 project work, and we've actually stumbled into we've actually found a lot of health needs from our population through our previous project work. So that's what we're going to present today. So the BC Métis Federation is a non-profit association that works to ensure the well-being of its members throughout the province of BC. Through grassroots efforts, BCMF advocates on behalf of its many members living across the province. We want to preserve our heritage and share it with younger generations, as it is necessary for the survival of our Métis people. Through cultural revitalization, gathering community, sharing stories, we want to ensure our legacy lives on. And our mission, values, and vision. So our vision is that a strong and engaged Métis population in BC that is grounded in Métis knowledge, language, and culture. Our mission, to work with integrity and collaboration towards the advancement of Métis knowledge, language, and culture, wellness, and self-determination today and for future generations. And our values are that BCMF has identified values that will be honored and respected in recognition of our grassroots Métis culture. This includes trust, honesty, integrity, accountable leadership, and support for Métis elders and youth. Before we move on to our membership demographics, I just wanted to also say I'm a former alumni from SFU. I have a degree in health sciences from here, and I'm also currently working on my nursing degree at BCIT as well, so a lot of stuff happening. And over to Kevin to talk about her.
Yeah, so my name's Kevin Henry, as Drake alluded to. I'm actually from Saskatchewan, and how this came about was I was doing some of the COVID relief strategies for M&S out of Saskatchewan, and my brother talked to me about coming to BC, help out with their Phase 3 project. And when we started doing the Phase 3 and Phase 4, what we did was we started we took a survey of our membership, and we identified a high percentage of our high-risk members. And so we put together a proposal to the government, allocated roughly $300 per family. And it wasn't so much the money that I noticed that where the necessity came about. It was the actual phone conversations and hearing what was going on with these people in their lives. And that's when we realized that this was a very, very in-depth problem, because this actually came about through our COVID funding, which was more a case I would have thought of like the economic and socioeconomic problems that follow that. We didn't realize it was so in depth, and it was sort of like peeling the layers of an onion. It just kind of got deeper, and the truth started to unveil itself, especially with getting on the phone and talking with our members. So, and if you look at our membership demographics, 43.7% of our membership, that's roughly 3,000 plus, is located in the Lower Mainland. So we have a high degree of members that are particularly at high risk in the Lower Mainland, and just simply because the cost of living in Vancouver. It's very relatable to that. Our stats on some of the unemployment situations was that in phase 3, we're at 46% unemployment. And a lot of that was due to the fact that we have a lot of people that were either elders that were already retired and looking for extra ways to make money, or we had a young part of our population that couldn't even break into the workforce, or people in entry-level jobs. And what happened was, in talking to some of these families, there were just simply jobs that did not exist anymore. Like, because of COVID, things just shut down and whatnot. So, and out of our total membership of this area, we identified 23% were actually at high risk. So the numbers were quite staggering once we started, actually hitting the ground running and trying to figure out what was the best way to help out. And if you look at our total membership here on our 2022 membership basis, like, our numbers don't seem that high. If you look at our card carrying members, our actual BCMF card carrying members, it works out to roughly around 1,500. But as you can see, though, the demographic is right around the entire province. If you look at the map there under our membership demographics. And most of it, though, is we do have a big base, obviously, around the Lower Mainland area, the Vancouver area. Hey, Drake, would you like to talk?
Yeah, so our partner communities, they all, as indicated on the map, they include Dawson Creek Métis Federation, Fort St. John Métis Society, the North Thompson Cultural Society, Nova Métis Association, Old Fort Métis Association, Peck-Lee Moon Métis Society, that's the one in Prince George, Métis Association of Central Okanagan, Skeena River Métis Community Association, and South Island Métis Nation. So BCMF continues to build relationships with Métis communities and serve serve delivery organizations throughout British Columbia. Statements of cooperation or memorandums of understanding have been signed with these 9 communities. So moving on to the socioeconomic issues and risk factors. So recently we completed 4 phases of COVID-19 community support. We've had about the same cohort of members. Some have left the cohort, some have joined, but it's still stayed around the same amount of members, which is 350 families. These members were surveyed throughout all 4 phases of the program via phone interview. This is very critical because this is a unique grassroots approach that allows for relationship building and creates a dialogue where members can actually express their challenges and concerns and needs to someone within the community. They can talk to someone that actually trusts that they'll actually understand what they're saying and can take that in and put that into affirmative action. And that's our unique approach to information gathering and how we get a lot of our data. So what we do know is that unemployment, job security, food and housing security were some of the major concerns of our members. After almost 2 years of the pandemic, 38% of our survey respondents were still seeking employment, still now. Economic instability often leads to risky behaviors, such as escapism through substance use, and that's what we are presenting on today. And these concerns also lead to increased risk of mental health issues, which can lead to self-medicating and unhealthy coping mechanisms, all tying into the substance use and drug concerns. So, Kevin, do you want to speak next?
Yeah, up next we're talking about illicit and toxic drug impacts, and what we did a mini survey just to kind of get an idea of where some of our members were at, and we spent a week or two just sending that out to our membership, and the response we got back was every single person who responded had a family member that passed away from a drug overdose. And so it was, and these were members that were from the lower economic, just entry level positions to even people. We had someone within our own office that they had a family member that's passed away from drug overdose. So in that sense, it just seems like there was the impacts were across the board. There wasn't, although economically, yeah, people are more at risk. What I noticed in our little mini survey that we sent out was it seemed to be broad spectrum right across. Economics didn't even seem to matter. It's just what people were exposed to. And I, even speaking personally for myself, I have a family member myself that actually ended up incarcerated over drug use and has spent the greater part of his adult life in a penitentiary because of drug use. So even I see it from a personal level too on that side of it for sure. And then looking at some of our barriers to data collection, the biggest thing for us right now is just because we sort of stumbled onto this. We're not like, we have a list of barriers: lack of resources, funding to conduct health research, lack of trust in institution, stigma and drug use, stigma around drug use and addiction, and lack of community services access for members. The big thing for us at this point is we're not really sure, we're sure what we need to do down the road, but for now, the priority number one is to try to get some research data so we can give it to the PHO office and we can start getting, hopefully we can give them the right information and accurate information that is able to help them formulate how they design some policies and whatnot, or any policy recommendations that they want to do. And one thing that was really prevalent with a lot of our members was general trust in anything. I mean, that's what I find is, I know, like I was talking with we were talking with Dr. Bain Smith this morning, and they have, their epidemiologists, and they send out their surveys and whatnot, and they try to, put in what they can with their surveys and try to kind of tape things together, so to speak. But, a lot of our members don't have access to technology to even do the surveys. They're in remote places. They might not even have an active cell phone. There was people on our list, on our 350 families that we had identified. I roughly talked to directly 172 of those families personally on the phone, but there was probably over half of that on top of that. We couldn't track these people down, so we don't know what was going on with them, whatnot. And I hate to sound like that's the worst case scenario, but I'm just hoping that they simply had a new phone number and we just couldn't connect with them. But that was a major issue for us too. And with that trust, I mean, a lot of people are very hesitant to tell you what's going on personally in their lives. Like there's, and I found the conversations when we talked about the economic side and food insecurity, they sort of brought it out themselves, right? And that's what I found with them. The more comfortable they got with you, the more they just were able to talk. And I think it makes a big difference having someone from within your own community talk to them, because we're not the police, we're not the authorities, that kind of thing. We're there to try and find a way to help these people. So, and I think it opened the lines of communication quite a bit more. And then obviously the last one there with the barriers was lack of community services access for members, and that we did get some feedback on that, but at this point, we're just unsure because BCMF is in its infancy. It's been around 10 years, but going down this path, we're just beginning. We don't know what it's going to look like yet, or how it's going to be, because we're not sure what's more relevant at this point. Okay. So
and to move on to what Kevin was saying, the largest concern is that even though we're doing COVID-19 relief projects as we completed them, not even related to health, all of a sudden we're finding, like Kevin was mentioning, peeling back the layer of an onion, all of a sudden we're finding more and more and more concerns, and this is without even really taking a direct look at addiction. So we really want to make sure we can follow these actions and recommendations. So our last 4 recommendations are that we want to address challenges with data collection. We want to develop a community health team to assess the needs of our membership. We want to determine which outreach, prevention, and treatment services would be most appropriate and impactful to our communities. And we want to roll out programs and services urgently. I would argue that one of the highest recommendations we really want to understand and address is how we want to collect our data and which way we want to outreach to our communities. We want to learn more about this concern we have in our communities. We want to make sure we can dig down and really start to talk to people, and not just by sending out surveys, because technology isn't often easily accessible. The best way to approach this is just grassroots ground truthing. And Kevin, is there anything else you want to?
Well, I guess the other thing I think about when we're talking about data collection with our membership. I mean, I found with talking with Dr. Bonnie Henry and Dr. Bain Smith, even about their data. I mean, they're based in it, their data was really out of it was just out of time with what they had. They were using 2018 numbers and releasing it in 2022, right? So it's not that they're necessarily inaccurate, but they're just not up to date, and maybe just don't realize how deep the problem runs. And obviously, you just have to walk down Hastings to see kind of what's going on with that, with any of these situations, and where it can lead. That's that side of it. So, I mean, that's the big thing and that's why we have our policy, our sort of our little step-by-step plan moving forward, but we're not quite sure what it looks like. Yeah, we've talked about what we want, but we got to find out exactly what's going on first, and that's by providing accurate data in the first place. And that's all I got for you there.
Yeah, and that will conclude our presentation. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening and participating. And if anyone has any questions, please let us know. Thank you.
Okay, I'll organize the questions here. Go ahead, Susie.
You just basically said you've got the beginnings of a step-by-step plan, but you need the data to support it.
Yeah.
Are you comfortable to relay what that step-by-step plan might look like?
Well, what I'm referring to is our recommendations, right? It's just that's the step by step. I mean, like we have an itinerary of how we want to go, but we're not sure if that means education, like family education, public education. We got to find a way how to get our grassroots members to trust us in the first place, and it sort of indirectly happened because of the COVID strategy. That's how this all even came about. We never meant to set out to do any of this in the first place, but it just sort of what unveiled
that to you.
Yeah, is that the truth of it, right? It just kind of unveiled itself.
One thing and everything else comes.
Exactly right. Yeah,
Yep.
one problem
Okay.
became 10 after a couple phone calls, right?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So the recommendations that you have here are things that where you're at right now. You don't
Yes.
have sort of a back pocket plan that if you get the support, you're ready to roll out.
Well, this is our healthcare team right now. We don't even have, like, in all honesty, we don't really have a staff set out yet because we're when we had a meeting with Keith and then some of the other admin staff, with how I phrased it was, we're the two guys with the shovels breaking ground here. We just stumbled onto this but we know we need to do this. So if we're going to get the support, we got to make sure we have things in order before we know how that's going to go, right? But it all comes down to education and knowing what we're going to do with that data, but we got to find out what it is for sure. Even though we did talk to a lot of our membership, when we put out the survey for the drug impact, people were quite open with us. I was pleasantly surprised with that, and maybe just because we had talked to them on the phone, they felt comfortable, and so they went online, and the ones that could access it did. Now, did we get everyone to answer that survey? No. But I mean, we're probably looking at it's going to take a real serious effort on our part for probably a good, I'm going to ballpark 3 months, 4 months, just to gather data, do some data clustering, and put it together into a report.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Dan?
Thanks. You briefly mentioned about partnerships and stuff, and I'm just wondering about those partnerships regarding if there's any partnerships with like First Nations Health Authority, those kind of partnerships, or within the Ministry of Indigenous Reconciliation, that ministry. Is there has been reached out by the association to help you along to achieve these goals?
Yeah, we talked with Dr. Bain Smith today about that, and she gave us a bit of a strategy on how to do that, and we're not quite sure, because the other part of what got us to the table was Keith had reached out to Dr. Bonnie Henry asking why BCMF wasn't at the table and part of the conversation, and that was the other side that got this rolling too. So, like I say, this is just in its infancy right now, right? So.
Great. I have a question for you. Thanks for coming here and telling us about where you're at with all this. It's really informative. I was kind of curious, when you think about what exactly you're going to be stepping into, first the data, first the understanding, building relationships and trust. Are you at the stage where you could give us an idea of maybe the types of programs and services that may be useful to the people that you're serving and what you're thinking about?
One common thing that was relayed in our survey was that a lot of community members, I don't want to use the term open secret, but it's kind of like everyone knows that there's a drug problem, but no one's talking about it. Like, there's concerns of families that maybe have had someone that lost a loved one due to an addiction, or is battling an addiction, or is waiting to go to rehab. And it sounds broad, but just a lot of communities just really want that awareness of, like, hey, there is a drug problem here. I don't know what that, again, the education would look like, but we need to make sure that we need to at least raise awareness of, like, there are illicit drug use, like, cases happening in this community. And a lot of people seem to be have a raised awareness about that. And Kevin, I don't know if you want to speak more to that.
No, I'm in full agreement, because that was sort of the general theme, was people just wanted to know that somebody was listening to them first of all, and that someone that isn't authoritative or they're getting in trouble if they tell us the truth, that kind of thing. That's a big part of this, is just building the trust within the membership. And sadly, unfortunately, we have a high number of members that would require that sort of assistance, education, help, and I guess it's sort of it's almost like the elephant in the room that everyone knows there, but no one's talking about until now. So that's why I say if I'm a little bit unsure of how the future looks like, it's just because I'm not sure which way this is going to go. I just know they need education, and we're going to need counseling. We're going to need probably NACS loan kits and whatever else. But at this point, the big thing is just get our membership talking about it, so we raise awareness and start getting families on board.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions, members? Go ahead, Rona Ree.
Thanks for coming in today. Really appreciate it. I have to admit that I have this hard time grasping just the Métis nation. Like, my sense is that there's a lot of different communities of Métis as opposed to, and you being the larger umbrella organization, and how they come together. I guess what it boils down to is a question of communication for me. Like, you've mentioned you're doing surveys. I'm curious about how you got there. You mentioned different numbers for members and the potential for it to grow. So much of what is going to move us forward is going to be on a foundation of strong communication and trust, as you said. So I'm just curious if you can describe a little bit about that and where there's a place for plugging in.
Do you want to do it first? Well, what we have is so BCMF itself has approximately 1,500, it's a little over that, but roughly 1,500 registered BC Métis Federation memberships. So that's what we have, our numbers. Our partnership communities are our outlying communities, and they're part of the BCMF in a partnership. And with them, we're a little over 6,000 members. So what we do then is, we'll have our board meeting. We have a board meeting on Thursday. So you have each one of your partner has their representative on the board, plus our board, and everybody. Thankfully, the communication is fairly fluent, I would say. Of course, it's a typical association where you get people that, there's misunderstandings, that kind of thing. But yeah, but for the most part, communication, for the most part, has been good. The big thing for us would be having to deliver a service, and just with some of the families we're dealing with, we would have to travel to those communities because it's simply more cost effective for us to go there and help educate the partnership, the board members in those areas, and then we work together hand in hand with them, right? So it's going to take a little bit of hand holding just to make sure if we were to put something together, that it would have to go that way, just to make sure we're doing it ourselves until we get enough people on board that can help deliver the program, however that should look like.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions? Go ahead, Sonia.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to delve a little bit more into the community health team. So you said currently we got 100% of that health team here. So you're looking much more at the research and data rather than delivery. Yeah.
The delivery part would be the positive part that happens down the road once we kind of know what that looks like. For right now, we're just looking at doing the research and data collecting right now.
But with the intention of ultimately getting into delivery of services. And then if you could describe how that would work with the geographic kind of diversity of your membership.
Ideally, we would like to either train community leaders, like community leaders of the BC Métis Federation community there, by us traveling to those communities and ensuring those services are being delivered, and having a system where we can actually check in at least once or twice a month just to ensure services are still being delivered. Whether that looks like the leader of that community, or we hire someone within the community, train them up. Kevin is an RN. I'm nursing school.
I'm retired. Well, I was up to this point anyways.
But no, we have the capabilities to ensure training is completed with our membership, and we can ensure that our members are delivering our actions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any other questions? Pam on the phone? Okay, well, on behalf of the committee, I just want to really thank you for coming in and letting us know your journey as it comes to helping your members through this huge crisis in BC. So thanks for that. And as you continue on with figuring out the data and the relationship, please let us know if there's something that comes from that you think we should know about. It would be really important. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thanks for listening to us, and we appreciate the time. It's quite an honor to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Great. All the best.
Okay.
Okay, friends. Yeah, we got time, so we'll see you all back. Okay, welcome. On behalf of the committee, we see some familiar faces. Welcome again, Brittany and Kevin. I saw her come walking around here. So you're our second of the afternoon, and I just want to, first of all, maybe do a quick round of intro of who's here on this committee, and then I'll tell you a little bit about our process. So my name's Nikki Sharma. I'm the chair and the MLA for Vancouver Hastings. Welcome. Go ahead.
I'm Trevor Bond. I'm the MLA for Prince George Valemount and the deputy chair.
Trevor Halford, MLA for Surrey White Rock.
Dan Davies, MLA for Peace River North.
Sonia Frisnow, MLA for Cowichan Valley.
Doug Routley, MLA for Nanaimo, North Cowichan.
Susie Chand, MLA, North Vancouver Seymour.
And I'm Ronna Ray Leonard, and I'm from Courtney Comox.
Okay, we have Pam on the phone. Go ahead, Pam.
Pam Alexis, MLA for Abbotsford Mission.
Okay, so for the record, right now we have Western Aboriginal Harm Reduction Society. Here we have Brittany Graham, Vandu Executive Director, Lorna Bird, Vandu Board President, and WARS Board President, Kevin Yake, Vandu Board Vice President and WARS Member, and Flora Monroe, Vandu Board Treasurer and WARS Board Member. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll pass it over to you to learn from you. We have about 15 minutes for your presentation, and the rest of the time we'll spend in discussion with each other. We usually have lots of questions and want to understand as much as we can in the time. So I'll pass it over to you.
So when we talked about what to do today, we felt like coming up with like a physical presentation might be a bit A, much for a week, but B, that it might be better to like hear from the actual members of the group and how the group was formed and like why this kind of group is really important. So it's going to be mostly them kind of taking the lead here.
Wonderful.
So I'm not sure who wants to speak first.
Well, I can start. I'm the president of WARS. I was president when we first started WARS. I don't even know how many years ago. It's just been, because I've been with Vandu now for 18 years, and so I've been.
It's probably been about 15 or so.
With WARS. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We also, I don't know. I'll just pass it over to Flora for now. Flora.
Yeah, I started. Actually, Lorna brought me into Vandu. Introduced me there, and I started working with volunteering and worked my way up to the position I have now, which is the treasurer, as well as the casual supervisor if one can't make it for Vandu. And I just got on board with the WARS board. But with my view and to see the future of WARS is because there's like so many Aboriginal people that are being, it seemed like, targeted for downtown a lot, quite a bit. So that's a lot of our people going down for no reason. So we like to keep up with that, keep up with what they're doing, and we like to come up with a lot of things for them that they can do with where we have our outreach programs where they volunteer to make money. There's also, we have our sharing circle that we have, then we have our membership meeting as well as a board meeting we have. There's a lot of things, like, as the years continue, will probably be a lot more coming in. I do the Cree class for the people there, and it's I just started that, and it's pretty good. I've constantly have a full class, so it's always. And we also have Wednesdays where we make star blankets. So a lot of the stuff that we're bringing back with WARS is bringing back our traditional teachings, healings, whatnot that we need to do to build up the strength back with our Aboriginal people.
And I think one of the things that's interesting about the group is that a lot of people who are part of WARS are from other parts of the country or other parts of the province. So a lot of people, there are a few people who are from the First Nations of the Vancouver area, so the Tsleil-Waututh, the Musqueam, and the Squamish Nations, but most people are coming from other places. And I think that hasn't really been reflected in a lot of the policies at the provincial level. So for example, First Nations Health Authority only recently started to recognize urban Indigenous people in the last 3 or 4 years, because their mandate was to represent the First Nations of BC. But there's a significant population of people in BC who come from other parts of the country who are Indigenous and have the same issues that are happening to our Indigenous people from BC, and they're sort of being lost in the shuffle. And so groups like WARS are really important because it allows people to come to those groups and be proud to be both Indigenous and people who use substances and are able to figure out the direction of programming and policies that they want to work on.
Yeah, like myself, I'm from Manitoba. I've been here, I don't know, 10 years now, and well, I don't think of it as another part. Like, we're all Aboriginal people, so it's just like we're all of one. So no matter where I come from, it's just I do what I can to help. They're still the same, same people as us, just different languages. So
we have a group called it's where I come from. It's just, people say their whole life story, and so you get to know everybody that's different. And like Flora lost a son down here, and I lost 2 daughters down here, all to the war on the drugs, right? Like one of my daughters OD'd, and the other one died of AIDS, and one was in '94 and one was 2008. So it gives me a lot of initiative to fight with the people down here, to help. If I can help one person, I've done my job, you know. So that's what. And like I'm a supervisor also for the OPS in Vancouver.
And I lost my son in 2018, at which time too, like, he didn't think I was doing anything but just hanging around down there until he started coming there, and he was working on a proposal to start a youth program for mental health, but unfortunately that's a lot of things he had written down. I still have some of his writings that he had, that if what he wanted to start, he really had a heart for that, for the youth. He said that the youth were being left behind. And then we have Kevin here, that's like, he's from further from where I live, where I'm originally from.
So, friends, go around. My name is Kevin Benazir Ernest Jake, 6 Nations Mohawk. It's Ontario. It stems down through Buffalo into Ontario. And I've been with WARS for as long as I've been with at Vandu, coming on 14 years. But yeah, I worked my way up to a point where I was president for a year at WARS. And at that time we had no, we didn't have any money, any grants or any thing like that. So Vandu helped out a lot that way. So we had a lot of time to in our groups talk about the cultures and the different cultures and whatnot. And so I sort of had a hand in starting where I'm from, because when I was younger, I wound up in trouble a couple times. I was in jail, but when I got in jail, I hooked right in with the programs there with the Native Brotherhood, right? And it's one of the most, I think it's one of the most respected groups in jail. And so yeah, it was because of all the different cultures and different tribes throughout Canada, across Canada. So people got a chance to say their story and about their tribe, where they're from, and from when they can remember, as far back as they can remember, right up to the present time that they're doing the where I'm from. And yeah, I really like WARS. I'm still like a member, but I'm not on the board, because I was on the board of this and this, doing this, that, and this. There's a lot of things. My plate was overflowing, so I had to step back for some things. So yeah. Anyways, in the talking circle as well, I got that from in prison. Like, and this bunch of men were sitting around. It was called Tough Talk. Sit around and guys, they they tend to not, talk about their past or what, some pretty heart pulling stories and stuff. And so they started a group. They had the group there, Tough Talk. It's a talking circle, and you see some guys start talking. They get more into it, and then they to the point where they're breaking down, right? And it's therapy, right? So it's healing. It's quite a a lot of people talk about it within the prison, and they get up into the office of the supervisor of the jail, which used to be called we call it the warden, but the supervisor. They wanted to come and sit in some of our circles, not just check it out. But so I thought that'd be a good thing for Vandu as well. And they turned it around to a really, really positive thing. It's a talking healing circle, and it's every Friday, and it's really helped a lot of people. And same with where I'm from. There's a lot of things, like over the years I was hooked in with a lot of different groups and that, and it just, it nothing but helped me, these things. And, there's some pretty tough times down here for Aboriginals as well, because with police brutality and stuff. It seems they're left back a lot, and a lot of the policies, a lot of the turnover, different things in especially downtown Eastside. So I suppose we got another group, International League of People Struggle, that Vandu we hooked in with. It's kind of like a sister group, and it gives us a world stage. And we listen to a lot of films and read up on what they're doing and stuff, and give us some good ideas for here, similar things like, our fishing rights and everything. And
we went on a caravan up north. We went to 5 different communities. Anyways, we ended up getting a group called EDGE. That's Eastside Illicit Drinkers Group in Education. We found out how many people, it's almost like we went to one place, Fort St. James, and it was just like, people were being treated like they were 200 years ago. Where they had the stuff like to shoot up, and that they had it outside the welfare office where it's child and family. So if anybody went to get any of the stuff, their kids were being taken away. The other place where you can get it was outside the band office. Again, then you're shunned from the band office. So it was just. We just seen how many different ways that Native people were being treated. So when we started, there was in 3 months 24 people died from EDGE, and that was quite a big number. They were dying from even just exposure, and then the drinking. They were drinking hand sanitizer, stuff like this, and then we ended up starting a Sherry program, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you were the one.
So I think they've spoke about 2 really important things, is that when wars comes together, you guys see things really quickly. So going back to what Kevin was saying about the talking circles, they ended up having specific ones on healthcare, and a paper was shared with you about how people felt like they were treated like crap because they were Indigenous. Well, it says Native in the paper, but and that came out in 2017. And I think 2 years ago there was that massive report that Adrian Dix did about the nurses betting on Indigenous people who were in hospital their blood alcohol level. And when that came back to EDGE and came back to wars, people were not surprised, because they had been saying for years, we are not getting health care because we are Indigenous. We're not getting health care because we have used alcohol or used drugs. We're being treated like shit. And it wasn't until someone who was very high up had it brought up to them, but that has been happening for eons. And so I think that's a really big thing, is listening to people. And then
St. Paul's, if they know you're from downtown, you'll be sitting there for anywhere from 8 to 10 hours before they'll even look at you, because you're not.
I mean, there's horror stories you can hear from people. Like one of our drinkers, she had a hernia surgery 25 years ago, and they left a sponge in her, and she went in almost every year with excruciating pain, and they told her she was constipated and sent her home with whatever, only gave her an x-ray, you're constipated, until she like stood up in the middle of the ER and screamed bloody murder and said, there has to be another machine in this stupid hospital for you to look at me. And when they did, they found she had a massive infection, and the doctor said, if we hadn't done something right now, you would have died. And she almost died in hospital despite that infection. And that's only because she was strong enough to push through that system. And there are so many people that have the strength but are just tired from having to do it every day. So it's something that we see constantly. And I think the EDGE thing, not to push here, but we tried to get them their own presentation because they have written an alcohol strategy on how to make things better in Vancouver and in BC. Like the detox system is terrible, the treatment center is terrible. Their 30% of overdose deaths have alcohol in them. So, but we were told they have to do a written submission. So, if you want them to do a real presentation, they would definitely do that. So, but like that group is across the province, and is only once WARS and WARS members were going to these places and chatting with people that they were like, oh, a lot of people are drinking non-beverage alcohol like Rubby or Listerine or whatever because they can't afford other stuff, or because there's such discriminating practices in their towns where you are only allowed in the liquor store once
if you're native,
once a day. Or in some of these towns like Lytton, they would actually turn off the ATMs on busy days or busy times so that people couldn't access their own money to go to the liquor store. So there's some real paternalistic ways that are presenting, specifically in alcohol, but can actually be reapplied to people who use other substances as well. So anyway. Anything else anyone wants to?
Well, there's a few different things. Like in Williams Lake, they've got a food bank there, and if you've got a box, you're not allowed to get on the bus if you're native. So you got to walk the distance, regardless of where you live. It's just a lot of the things that in Fort St. John, there's only one place. It's a soup place where you can sleep. But if you have any alcohol on you, you're barred out of there for a week. So if you don't know anybody, you're sleeping outside. You better hope that it's not winter. But it's just, this is really the honest to God truth that this is how people are being treated up there if you're native.
Mm-hmm. Or you'll go into like social services, and instead of actually helping you, they'll offer to give you a bus ticket to some other town to get you out of their hair. Like, this is the way that people are treated in this country and in this province.
Yeah.
Kevin, sorry.
So we went to, when I first started, hey, talking to him, when I first started, so it was BC, it was a methadone program that brought me there, because I came out west looking for a family member, hadn't found him, and hadn't found her, and and I ran out of money, so I went into detox, and from there to recovery, and so it was BCA Palm that brought me to Vandu. And then all these other groups that were there, I was just like sitting in the back at the meeting, not saying nothing, just kind of taking things in. And some people recognized me and brought me forward, and I'm forever thankful for that, because I don't know, I had something to say a couple minutes ago, but I forgot what it was. I was just listening. I don't know.
I think they're going to ask us questions now, so they'll prompt us into what we want to think about.
Well, so I first started, and Lorna and Ann Livingston and Dave Murray, who isn't here with us anymore, and we went to Regina to accept an award, the Kaiser Award. It's where it's work you do in the community, like it's an award of excellence for what you do in the community, and it was for Vandu wars and the subgroups, and we're going to get this award and get up and accept it not and say some things. And there was who was emceeing? Terry David Mulligan. I don't know if anybody knows. He used to be on Much Music on the VJ. But anyways, that's So we went to the liquor store, me and Lorna, one afternoon in Regina, and we went. I grabbed a 6-pack or something. She grabbed like a couple of tall bottles or something, and they're in bags. And we went into the mall because there's a hamburger joint in there. Like what was it? I don't know. Something. We were going to get a hamburger or something to eat, to go, right? And they stopped us. Security stopped us right at the door as soon as we walked in. And because we had alcohol, we weren't allowed in the mall, right? And we're going to accept this award for the work we do, right? I just couldn't put that together, so we said fine, we just left. But yeah, being judged and stuff like that. That's what I like about Vandu wars, and the whole part of it is the judging. There is no judging. It's out the window, right? You walk in, and you meet so many people that have similar stories. They come from other places where they're shamed and everything else in their own community. They ended up out here and meet a lot of people like themselves, and their story is as alien as they thought it was, and it's these groups that bring these poor people out and to deal with their problems and to see that they're not as bad as they thought they were, or treated like.
Good things that you have that you're the only one that has a problem, and you'll find somebody that has that problem that you have.
And a lot of people, yeah.
And I think that's sort of how you guys create your activism, right? Is
Yeah.
that there are a bunch of people that come together and you start noticing the patterns. Like, notice that the St. Paul's is treating everybody similarly, or you're seeing the same treatment at like welfare offices or whatever. And so that's how we can create really great policies, is because we're actually listening to people as they're experiencing it in the moment. And it allows for us to see the system level changes that need to happen years in advance before the system actually sees them. And so, if we can tap into groups like WARS more readily, I think there'll be an easier way for you guys to move forward and make more adjustments.
Should we open up the discussion? I just want to start by saying thank you and just acknowledging the losses that you talked about today with your children. We're all, I think on behalf of the committee, really sorry to hear that. I'm sure it's very painful, and thank you for telling us your stories today. I have a lineup of people that want to ask questions, so we'll go for Trevor to Susie. Go ahead, Trevor.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to share your journey, and it's such a personal journey that each of you are on. And on that journey, we've heard from other people talk about access to support. And specifically, I want to ask you guys about access to, some call it trauma therapy, right? And if you guys if that access is available to the people that you're assisting to individuals, are you seeing that help?
We just started a trauma just last week on Wednesday. We just started a trauma therapy. We're just learning. They just brought 5 or 6 people in.
Yeah, it's true.
We just started. Yeah, we just started it. So it's a 5-week course. So we just started last Wednesday. So hopefully in 5 weeks we'll know a lot more.
Yeah. Did you say that was through VGH?
So through VCH, the harm reduction team. Sarah Whitten is the person that's organizing it. But this is the first time that we've ever been offered anything like this, and I don't think there is.
And that's their first group too.
Yeah.
That's what they told us.
So it's new, and I do think that there's not enough out there. 5 people out of the 50 to 60 people that volunteer at Vandu getting into this is great, but it's still, it's a very small percentage of the neighborhood. So, those kinds of services are not offered almost ever. And so if there could be more of that, it would be helpful.
Susie, the thing is, once we get the training, then we can get more people in. So that's basic thing of it is the things that be offered to us, we can take out more to the community to get them more help that they need, instead of being I'm also on Our Homes Can't Wait Coalition.
Yeah, me too.
I'm sure you've heard of that. Yeah.
It's been going on since what, 15?
It's off and on, like, but lately it's been, the momentum's been going up again, and basically a lot of it too is like I started giving them shit about, well, it's First Nations. I said, this is unceded territory, so what the fuck are we fighting over our own land, over people that don't even own it? I said, and we're the ones homeless. So I don't think that's right.
Yeah, our Homes Can't Wait. It's a group we started that was started probably 10 some odd years ago, and they're using our space in Vancouver with no problems, and give us a lot of Vancouver members a chance to hook in with it. And then within the last, I think 3 years, we took it on as a group that is under Vancouver's umbrella type thing, like a subgroup. And yeah, it's about human rights issues is what in the activism like that we do. Like there's so many different things, and yeah, it's a really good group. Anyways, I just wanted to give a plug in for it. No, but I can say more, but I don't mind me. I just it's always something, man. Hungover birthday party.
Susie, go ahead.
So you talked about, you're talking in circle and something comes up like, we're all experiencing this kind of situation when we go to St. Paul's, which what you mentioned, or say one of the services offices or whatever. Do you have a mechanism to pass that information forward to somebody to speak to, like a rep from St. Paul's that then goes back and says, hey?
Yeah, we have with Dr. Woods.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's well-meaning people at every institution, but even when you say things that are really specific, for example, like letting people out, of their care in the middle of the night, so they're being discharged at 3 a.m. and saying that's really harmful. Like, we've had members who have to walk from St. Paul's to the downtown Eastside. Yeah, and like a specific example is one of them was walking home, he got beat up and ended up in an ambulance and was back in the hospital on his way. So if they had just kept him there overnight, they would have saved the hospital fees for everything, putting him in, etc. And the response from the social workers was saying, well, we can't afford to keep people in the overnight, or we give people bus tickets when we can, but it's in the middle of the night. You're like, well, why not just let them out at 7 a.m. or whatever time is a humane time? So, there are people who want to change things, but for example, with the EDGE group, they've written this strategy on how to change many mechanisms in the healthcare system and the housing systems around alcohol access for harm reduction. And it was only until we actually wrote it that people have been listening. But we've been saying the same things for years and have been asking for meetings and have been asking for funding. But, now people are interested, but in that process, that group has lost so much life. I mean, I could name, 15 people off the top of my head of people who drink non-beverage alcohol, who, if they'd gotten the services they needed 2 years ago, 4 years ago, whatever, would be alive right now. And it's because it's never enough priorities. And even right now with that alcohol strategy, after the fact, the city of Vancouver has given the EDGE group money because they didn't sign on to the document at the time because they didn't take it super seriously. But then everyone else is now, and that's the politics of it. So I think if we just start listening to people before we have to spend years writing the actual formal document and just start changing stuff as we go, it would save people much quicker.
Well, yeah, just since we opened up the injection room, that was in December 16th, 2016, I know over 500 people that have passed away that I know personally, that I would know them by their first name, over 500. And there's over 70 of them that sat on one of the boards at Vandu. We have a lot of different groups there, and there was over 70 that I could name just like that. And that's just from the war on drugs,
And with the alcohol thing, they've been pushing to say this is important, you should be focusing on it. There's been no money or time or energy put towards alcohol, but they represent 29 to 35% of deaths. That's what's in people's systems at the time, but we don't really care. And I think it also has to do with the fact that a lot of those people are Indigenous, and so it kind of goes on deaf ears, and the system continues to be racist, and it's hard to have those conversations, but it just is.
But to get all the information out, it's a lot of the meetings that we go to, and you know, everybody talks at the meetings, and that's basically how all the information gets through.
They get all the information, but once out the door, it's left in the room it's been spoken to. It doesn't get accessed anywhere. Just once you leave the door, it's left behind.
Message.
But we carry it on.
We're the ones that live it every day.
Well, live experience and stuff.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Could you repeat what EDGE stands for, just so I know what organization?
Eastside Illicit Drinkers Group for Education.
Start again.
Oh, it's the Eastside Illicit Drinkers Group for Education. So they would be a subgroup of the Western Aboriginal Harm Reduction Society.
EIDGE.
Yeah, EDGE. We like acronyms at Vandu.
So
Eastside Illicit Drug
Illicit Drinkers Group for Education.
For education.
But they're like I think their perfect example is that there was more and more drinkers coming to more and more meetings at Vandu, and I think in a lot of other organizations they would push them aside and push them out. At Vandu, WAR stood up and said they need their own group, and when they got their own group, honestly, they've just taken it and flown with it. And that's the thing is people usually have behavioral issues or whatever you think when they're not being listened to, when they're not being heard, and when people are given the space. Like, we've had almost no behavioral issues with the EDGE group, but when people think of people who drink, the first thing you think of is violence, belligerence, etc. But that's not actually the qualities of people. It's just when they're not listened to or they're treated like babies or whatever. So that's really the key here, is giving people the autonomy to do the work.
And you can see these people, how much they've grown, just from being heard. Just when they first started a group, they're shy and everything, and now, they can go run a class themselves, and it's really amazing to see.
How do people come through the door and get involved with EDGE?
Well, we have every day of the week is like on a Monday there's the EDGE group. Tuesday is Tuesday education. That can be about anything. That's we have somebody that runs it. So if you want to talk about something, you just talk to that person, then it just goes on from there. Wednesday is BCA POM, which is methadone, the people on methadone. And on Thursday, that's when we have Wednesday we have our WARS meeting, our board meeting, and then on Thursday we have the Vandu board meeting. And then on Fridays the WARS meeting, and on Saturday we have WIND, which is Women in New Direction. It's a women's group. And we're trying to start a man's group, and I think that's going to be starting very soon.
So but I guess the question is why? Like, why are they coming through the door in the first place? Like, what motivates them to come?
What I'd say for me was looking for something to help me figure out what the fuck I'm doing here, or what it is that life has to offer.
Everybody's got their own problems, so just where do you fit in? So like say a person that's on methadone, they might come, okay, that's Wednesday, and then Friday, okay, I'm native, so let's go try this one, and on Friday they have the One Heart Healing Circle too.
That's the reason why people come in is the money, right? Like the first thing.
Just $5. It used to be $3. Now it's $5 for a group. And we call it to sit there for the 1 hour, and a lot of people, that $5 makes a big difference, and that might get them in the door.
We pay everyone for all.
So it's stipend for travel to get there, or cigarettes or something.
It used to be $3 for their bus fare. It used to be $1.50 for a bus fare, and then your bus fare would run out, so you'd have $1.50 to go back home. So that's with the $3, and we just finally raised it to $5. It was $3 for a long, long time.
Yeah, Kev, what were you going to say about the stipends?
Nothing about the stipends, but what ultimately gets people in is each group will go out into the community and talk to people and put flyers up talking about the group itself, and what it's and then talking to people, and a lot of people, believe it or not, they don't know of Vandu, right? If they're down in the 100 block, like a lot of people just stay in that area, stay in certain areas, right? So go out and talk to people and people, to build the group up and build and help people. that brings them through the door. And the $5 is just a stipend, not just a stipend, it's a stipend, but it's important for for travel or cigarettes or whatever, you know.
When we do a membership drive, we have some cigarettes to give them to fill out it, you know, and so they'll do it just for smokes or a couple of dollars. Like that, everybody, a couple of dollars makes a big difference to some people, you know.
I think also like a big thing is like we have all these things that are sort of to help people in the survival moment where like you come in to get your harm reduction supplies, you come in to use the OPS, you come into the meeting to get the $5, but once you're in the building, you have like almost a breath of fresh air where you're like, oh shit, these people are my people. They actually are running this. They make the decisions. This is an actual drug user group. It's not performative. It's not like there's a bunch of service providers who are making decisions for this group and how it's going to happen. It's very much, I can see myself in the person who's presenting to me. And so that allows people to all of a sudden go, whoa, like this is,
How do I get involved?
Whenever you have that first time someone comes in and they're all super jazzed, like you almost get like a high off of them being high on the fact that like they can see people exactly like themselves in positions of power.
Yeah.
There's so many ways, like as well, to get somebody hooked in. We have this one thing. We have just some certain kind of jobs and stuff around cleaning and pipe kits making, and we used to have a lot more like. Things changed, but still we got stuff, and so they have to start out at a level. It was called a coffee shift, and we never changed. We used to serve coffee years ago, and you know, so the person come in and help out with that, and then help out with other things. But it's called the what's it called now? Orientation, right? Group. So I call it a coffee shift. But anyways, so they come in after two orientation shifts. And what they do is with the front desk person, they delegate little small jobs like cleaning up, you know, straightening stuff up throughout the day, the 2 hours that they're there. And plus, the main thing is to get in their ear, the person at the front desk, get in their ear about what Vandy is all about, what we do there, all the groups, the activism, human rights, social justice, and all that stuff, and. To see if they want to ultimately join, like come and join on. Once you do 2 coffee shifts, then you're entitled to do different like job, hook in with the job what was it thing on Friday.
First you do pipe
and then you do pipe kits or whatever else, cleaning or something.
For every type of person, right?
Yes, and then we have a hiring. Quite often, there's a hiring for the positions we have because some people come and they don't stay as long, or so. It's with the overdose prevention site. We have the front desk, we have reception. That's the person assigning the person in to go into the back into the injection room, and back there you got an attendant to monitor everybody and watch everybody, make sure you know. Things are going good, and that if somebody ODs, we have a protocol for that. We've been practicing over the years, and not just practice, we had to put use. Like, you know, 6 years ago when this overdose fentanyl crisis started, it was like 2-3 overdoses a day in that room, and. You know, like it's not as many, but they're still happening. So we still, you know, it's very, very important. The attendant, reception, everything, and
I think it should be noted that all the things that you guys are talking about were created and collaborated on as a collective, and so like we're a democracy and we make decisions together, and the reason why we're able to like continue to grow is that people see that like there's not one person making like unilateral decisions. We're all making decisions together, and that sort of helps create like the autonomy of a group like WARS or a group like Vandu to work together. And like that's why we said this at the Vandu one, that like putting money and time into like creating drug user groups is really important because it gives people the space to actually be themselves with their colleagues and create like actionable items.
We hire them and they get 4-hour shifts. So like for the reception and for the front desk, it's $11 an hour, so you get $44 cash, right? And for a lot of people, that's pretty good money to just get, right? And then if you work in the injection room, which we also have, we train everybody out to do Narcan or naloxone. We train every person that works there. They're all trained for that. So we have the injection room. Then they make $13 an hour, but they're all 4-hour shifts, and it's all cash. So what do you call it? So we fill up the whole, like we're open from 10 to 10 every day except Thursday, which because we have the board meeting, but we open from 4 o'clock to 10 that day.
We started a drug group. It's called Drugs. What's the acronym?
Okay, that's a new group 2, Drugs. It's the Safe Supply. That's drugs. I can't remember.
Yeah, but it's a group. It's hard.
The new one that just started.
It's a group.
It came up with the name before the things. It was Drug Revolutionary.
I mean, Safe Supply is the last part.
Safe
Drugs.
Supply.
Drugs have like DRUGSS.
But basically, if you want to start a group of Vandu, we'll let you as long as you have the you have the idea of where your budget would be, how much time can you get people in it. We'll give anyone a chance to have a pilot.
That's a good acronym.
We'll give it to you.
Catchy.
But yeah,
I'm going to try to get through. Yeah, we got some more questions here.
For sure.
We got Doug and then Sonia. Go ahead, Doug.
Thank you. Thanks very much. A lot. Do you have access to legal advice when these things happen and help in terms of putting forward human rights complaints if these discriminations
For us,
happen?
all we do is just, if there's something that we just do it and then ask questions later.
That's activism. But we have lawyers in that to pivot, right?
Yeah, we do rely on it.
Very reliable, very educational.
And our general policy of things is we aren't an individual advocacy group. So if someone comes in with an individual complaint about their housing, we try to put them in the right direction of someone that's their skill. But when we see them coming to our Tuesday group or whichever group, and we see multiple people with similar complaints, then we create an advocacy campaign that is actionable at a system level instead of at the individual, because we don't have the resources to do the individual work, but we do have the resources to start pulling people together to do that larger scale work, and in the end would be more beneficial to more people. But yeah, Pivot's our main people that we work with.
Go ahead, Sonia.
Yeah, thanks. And again, just really recognizing the losses that you've talked about and how significant that is. And in the face of systemic discrimination, in the face of racism, in the face of systems that should be supporting you that have failed, what I see and hear from you are creating these systems and structures, and you are creating space and safety for people in your community. And I just want to really acknowledge and recognize that.
Thank you.
Brittany, last time we talked about funding, but can you give us a bit more of a sense of funding? And there's a lot happening here. You're traveling, you're making
we got a lot of groups
food, and so I'd be really interested in that. And also just what are the struggles around funding? And
well, so for Vandu, and we are the umbrella organization for all of these organizations. So there's 3 actual organizations. So Vandu, WARS, and BCA POM that are their own societies, but we have all of our funding in one pot. There is you can get into the dirty of it all, but everyone has their own contracts, etc. But the general Vandu contract that we've had almost consecutively since I think 2000 I think was when we got it, would have been from VCH, and that was about $250,000, and hasn't increased. It has continued to stay around the same. The increases we get are based off of inflation. So they do a 1% to 4% depending on the year. So right now I think we're closer to 260 in the end, whatever years later.
Basically, Vandu is the lowest paid frontline workers of downtown Eastside. We still go to work every day no matter what, because we care about the people. It's not about the money, it's the people that we look at,
And in those
They depend on us
scenarios, in those scenarios, like, so we've have other, so with our OPS, we said there's no way we can do more when they, so we mentioned at that time that in 2014, we got a letter from VCH saying, we've been told you have an unsanctioned facility for injection. That's not okay. If you do not close it, we will take away your money. And that was really our only chunk of money we were having. And so we had to make a hard decision to do that. We did do some like van mobile injection at the same time, but we did have to close the main one. And then 2 years later, we got a call. I was at work on Monday, left on Tuesday. They were called by VCH to say, we want you to open an OPS.
24 hours.
Can you do it in 24 hours? And when I got to work on Wednesday, we had a facility in our back. So, and
we opened up the room in 24 hours.
So within that, we got a contract for that, and it's roughly the same amount as our original contract. So we have about, our core funding now would be just shy of 600,000. But when you have like 50 to 60 volunteers every day doing all of the programming we do, it's just, the decisions are, we either cut back our hours and pay people more, or be as open as we can be and pay people less. And every time it comes to the board, there's no question about changing the hours. And so we always have to sort of adjust things. But yeah, like in general, it's a stipend between $11 and $15 an hour, depending on your position and your qualifications for those
supervisors
positions.
Get 15 an hour. That's the highest paid.
Yeah.
And then we only have 3 of them.
You know, there are benefits because it is under the table.
Yeah, because if you go to the other places, the supervisors are getting anywhere from $25 to $30 an hour, and we're getting 15. So, but we still work it, you know.
Yeah, and so, you know, we try to do as much as we can with what we can, but, you know, our core funding, I would say, and most of our money, there's, you know, things that come in for certain projects or whatever, but that's about 95% of our funds are coming from VCH and from those 2 contracts.
And with our travel, we usually have to apply for funding to go to somewhere to go, which is, what is that called again? Like when the traveling, like you have.
The caravans or?
No, the funding, like you apply for funding to see if you can go.
Like a grant.
Yeah, sort of like a grant. We have to provide, like, you know, thing to say where we're gonna go, whether we get accepted or not, and then
you have to fill out
we'll do
we're lucky if we can get accepted so that our hotel's paid for, or flights are paid for like this, so that we can go to a conference.
Or we'll have like a bigger grant. Like currently, we just had a meeting 2 weeks ago with
BC.
3 different regions. So VCH, Fraser Health, and Island Health. We tried to get as many drug user groups, representatives from each one, into a meeting room, and that cost us about $25,000 on a really small budget to like get everyone in the same room for one day. But we really had to beg OERC to give us that money. So if we increase those regional monies, it makes it a lot easier. Like, for example, at that one-day conference, the things that came up is that a lot of these smaller groups don't have the same capacity around like governance structures, or like that it's not okay for a person to be calling themselves an ED and a board member. Those are conflicts of interest, and you know, our board members are pretty well established in understanding all of that stuff, and so that kind of training needs to happen at other places, and we can't obviously take that on. But, you know, these are things that we're like, if there was money put aside for actual groups to run, and there was money put aside for capacity building, we could really build a network really quickly in this province that was like well functioning and understanding of like the issues across the province.
Okay, Shirley, go ahead.
It's nice to have the recognition, though, like even overseas of Vandu, they've heard of us, so we've gotten quite a few people coming in to see where we work, and
in the world,
so much as
we're the only ones that were run by peers in the world.
Yeah,
so
pure group led.
Well, I'll just add my thanks to everyone else's. We appreciate hearing your experiences and the work that you're doing. And actually, your last comments were exactly where I was going to go, and that is a network of support across the province, because we've learned some things in the information we've received over the last number of weeks and months. Indigenous people are impacted, 5.4 times more often with a drug overdose death. And First Nations women in particular are far more likely to die of a drug overdose. So I think the things that you are learning and working on are essential to understanding what we're going to do to help some of the most at-risk people. So that network, so for example, I live in the north. Do you have connections, for example, with Carrier Sekani or other organizations across the province? I don't know that we have amazing networks like this in that part of British Columbia. I could be wrong. That's probably something we need to be looking at in terms of how are people supported if you're not, in an urban Aboriginal setting. So maybe just a little bit about the networks. Do they exist? Do you provide advice in terms of how other people can best support Indigenous people? And specifically, what are the things we need to do?
Well, the one thing I can say about Indigenous people is the fact, like our own history, we have never had alcohol or drugs in our DNA ever. This is why we are so addicted to it now, because we don't have the structure in our DNA to fight it. So that's why we are more addicted. More susceptible to it, more addicted, and more vulnerable to die from it. Because it's just,
the system is messed too, like not putting it on the individual. Like if you're living in a northern place, well, for example, if we think to VCH, there's lots of places in VCH region that are rural, and so where are these people going to go to treatment or detox if that's the direction they want to go, or even get harm reduction services or methadone clinics or any of those things? Quite often for detox specifically, they'll send them to Vancouver, and so people will actually come to Vancouver, go to detox, doesn't work out for them for whatever reason because life happens, and then they get stranded in Vancouver for weeks, months, whatever. And so that system isn't very well developed. So, but not everyone wants to be in those places and or to do that structure, but growing that system is important. Beyond that, there is groups starting in other parts of the province. So for example, in Prince George, their name is Undo, but I'm not sure what it stands for, is one of their drug user groups. In Quesnel, I think there's 3 different groups trying to grow. So we are aware of places that are trying, but like, for example, the funding that's out there specifically for drug user groups is very small, and so they can only tap into like 30,000 to 50,000, and that's not enough to really do anything at this point. Like even renting a place in most places, that's the cost.
But a lot of the problems too is that say there's no places for couples. Like if they want to go into treatment, like there might be just this one little window that they want to get in there now, and there's no place for them. That might be the only time they've ever tried that, or they have the initiative to want to get in there and they're turned away. So that's what we need more of, places that couples can get into, or like sometimes they'll say, okay, call back tomorrow, call back next week, like this, and these people aren't going to wait. Like that might be the only window they have where they got enough courage to get themselves into a place and they're turned away.
And when you speak to people, I think the thing you realize is the way that the system is set up is a way of like creating people to go into a version of recovery that we all think. So basic sobriety is what the system thinks is the next step, where when you actually ask people what their goal is when they're going into detox, quite often it's to reduce their drinking, to reduce their drug use, to a safer level, to take a break because they need a break, to get a home. There's a family member that's worried about them. So their end goal actually isn't sobriety. So the big thing here is like the way that these programs work. For example, going into detox, if you go 2 or 3 times a year, they might actually tell you can't go again because you've gone too many times this year, because in the mind of the person who's running it is like, you're not learning your lesson and you're not stopping, so we're punishing you for not going. But like the person itself is going into that program with a completely different mindset. They say, I'm coming in, I'm using it, I'm going back to the life I lead with less drug use or less alcohol use, and that was their goal. So the system isn't listening to people. and is thinking that everyone wants to be sober. And there are people that want to be that way, but there are lots of people that don't. And if we don't start thinking about that, then we're never going to actually solve anything, because we keep putting people into a box that they don't want to be in.
Okay. I think we have time for one more question. I just want to know, really, it's really great to hear your perspectives. And one of the things we're tasked to do as this committee is to give our recommendations based on what we're learning and hearing from people like yourselves on how we stop the overdose crisis deaths from happening at such a high rate, and at all, if we can. Like, what are the things that we could do? And I'm just really curious from each of you, from WARS, if you could just tell me, like, what in your perspective would be that thing that that you want us to know about, that you think would help with that? If each of you could maybe say that I think that would be helpful.
Yeah,
so since April of 2016, they declared a state of emergency for fentanyl crisis and whatnot, and so we wanted action right away. In fact, we had a meeting in our board meeting, and our funder was there from Coastal Health, and we were recognizing these overdoses more and more, because we had an unsanctioned injection room, which we always had, and because we believe in it, right? And we always kept records, because we're always trying to fight for more injection rooms. But the thing is, like, there's been thousands of people come through Vandu to use that room. We haven't lost anybody, so we're doing the right thing in monitoring and talking and giving education around harm reduction and using safely. And but still the numbers are climbing. People are dying from these overdoses, and these are the people that use alone and stuff for whatever reason. They only got a little bit, or they just nobody knows, or whatever it is. So it's about reaching those people, but I feel we're doing our part in the sense of the overdose prevention sites, and the practices we have there, the protocols and stuff, and the education and everything. It's just how to reach those other people, and I think, like I said, we're doing our part. I think the government needs to step up a lot more and recognize the fentanyl part. We can only do so much of what's being made, what's coming into the country. But I think we're doing our part, is what I'm saying. And sometimes it's pretty hard when you lose so many people that you're so close to, that you met and you got along with, you work with, and now they're not here. Keeps you going, keeps you wanting to do more and more. But sometimes we get we feel we're coming up to a wall, but still we get enough people trying to push that wall down. But I think it's the government that needs to step up a lot more. Right? They don't see it like that.
For me, it's even though they go to treatment, they want a lesson of what they're doing, because they know it's not good. But where they live too, when they get out, they're back in the same boat as to where they went. So they keep going back, but there's no support in it. They're not given support in anything. As soon as you're done, okay, fine, you're on your own, bye, see you. And that's that. So why do they keep going back? Is try and keep making it to give themselves a sense of trying to do something. But when you don't have that support getting out, you're going to go back to the same thing doing again. That's why they keep going back. But there's nothing. There's nobody nowhere that I have ever seen downtown of anything with any kind of a support program for them when they get out. Although Vandu is there, we're there, we have our meetings and that they come to, but they're still going to see the addicts. They're still going to get that temptation. But there is absolutely nothing there for them when they get out. So you're back to the same boat. You may be clean for a few months at a time. 6 months is great when you do. And you're back to where you start, because you got no fight in you anymore. No matter how much you try, it's just you're fighting a losing battle.
When you have a room downtown on Welfare Day, they don't allow you to have any visitors, so therefore you're putting a person there to use it by themselves, so they're going to die. If they're going to OD, there's not anybody there to help them. And this is almost all of the places down there that rent these SROs. That's what they don't. They're not allowed to have visitors on Welfare Day. It's stupid. That's yeah. And what do you call it? But for places just like Vandu, I mean, like I said, we need more places that where couples could get into. But now, like today, not like a week from now or 2 weeks, because those like that, it's just like a little window that person might. The only time that they're going to try to sober up or straighten out is right now, and if you turn them away, they might not ever get a chance again.
Mm-hmm. We're just up on time, and I just want to thank you again on behalf of this committee for helping us learn from you. It's been really valuable, and we wish you all the best.
Yeah. There's one thing I wanted to add, though, also is the fact of how Child and Family Services, how they work. Mm-hmm. And they're the 19-year-olds that they're aging out, they don't give them any kind of support, education, anything. Soon as you're 19, you're out the door, and that's that. And you know where they come is where we are. And is that a guarantee? Like, what's the use of having Child and Family if they're going to go right to where they're trying to prevent them? And there's just no helping them. You're putting those 19-year-olds back into the risk of where their parents
they're taking away from the parents when they're 12 and 13 years old, and when they're 19, they're put back onto the street with no help.
A really thing that comes up quite often is you take the kid away, you give the family, the foster family, $800 or $1,200 a month to look after that kid. Like, if we made a system in which we paid these mothers and fathers some funds to look after their kids, that's a better system.
Yeah, and so they have real love.
But I think we're in a place where stigma continues to happen, where taking away kids from a place where drug use is happening is the thing that we think of. But most of the time, when people have love, they're better off, even if there is drugs in the family. And same thing with we as a system need to tell these systems that they need to change. So with all the doctor stuff, all the colleges stuff, there's a lot of guidance and guidelines out there, but doctors still are going to think in their head, this person just wants drugs, I'm not fucking giving them to them. So the thing that needs to happen is a policy change.
Help the parents, work with the parents, not take the kids away, but work with them to make it better for themselves and for their kids. Taking them away is just breaking them apart. And then that hatred starts from there growing up.
It's going back to 69 school.
Yeah. So put somebody in there to work with them. Have a support program for them. That would be the best thing for that, instead of ripping the families apart.
Thank you for listening to us.
Thank you for coming. Yeah, really appreciate it.
A little bit of coffee here.
Yeah, don't worry about it. That's fine. I'm always spilling things. It's fine. Yeah. That's what we do around here. Okay, thanks a lot. Very much. Do people want a couple minutes break before we go to the next one? Yeah? Okay, so why don't we start at in 5 minutes, we'll say. Is that good? Yeah, welcome, yeah. On the record. Welcome to Chris Livingston from the Vancouver Aboriginal Policing Centre. You're our final presenter for today. The committee, we'll just go do a little bit of interest. My name's Nikki Sharma. I'm the MLA for Vancouver Hastings and the chair, and maybe we'll start over there and do like a quick.
Sonia first now, MLA for Cowichan Valley.
Dan, you can do while you're walking. Go ahead.
Dan Davies, Peace River North.
Trevor Halford, Surrey White Rock.
Hi, I'm Shirley Bond. I'm the MLA for Prince George Valemount and the deputy chair.
Over there.
Doug Rutley, and I'm a North Cowichan.
Oh, I'm Susie Chant, North Vancouver Seymour MLA. Pleased to meet you.
I'm Ronna Ray Leonard. I'm the MLA for Courtney Comox.
Okay, and we have Pam on the phone. Go ahead, Pam.
Pam Alexis, Abbotsford Mission, MLE.
Wonderful. So, Chris, we'll give you about 15 minutes or, around there for your presentation. And then we're a committee that definitely has lots of questions. So we're leaving a lot of time for discussion at the end, so about 45 minutes for that. And I'll pass it over to you.
Great. Thank you very much. I'm using my radio voice, sorry. Thank you, everybody, for the invitation. I recognize Shirley's name. I think you may have signed some for funding for us in the past or with one of the organizations that I work with in the downtown Eastside. But I'm glad that you guys all took the time to come here onto the unceded territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh Nations. My name is Oaxcotza from the Nisga'a Nation, and it means cutting the tree towards the tree branch towards the water. Although I am Nisga'a, but my colonial name is Chris Livingstone. In the community of Vancouver, I'm actually running for a Parks Board commission with the Cope Party. But I've been involved in organizing in Vancouver since 2002. I'm a co-founder of the Western Aboriginal Harm Reduction Society, and I was their community organizer for the first 8 years of their existence, starting from as a member, being homeless, using drugs on the streets, traveling to Vancouver from a different town, which a lot of that's really the same pattern that I think we're all sort of concerned about. So I did write a lot of notes. I'm not going to use a lot of them, but so back in 2002, I was a homeless person. I had used drugs. And I've noticed quite a few differences from that time to where we are now. And I think you guys are familiar with the story. I believe First Nations Health Authority does a great job of creating the context of how problematic substance use has evolved over time, starting with its history within history and connections to racism. But for the, I don't know, from personal experience, like I said, 2002, I was here. People were using cocaine. People were using heroin. They were using speed to some degree. And then because of access and prohibition, there started to become more troublesome drugs that were created, like crystal meth and, crystal meth is the big one, and then eventually fentanyl is where we're at right now. But to me, so that's what I was trying to think about, what would I be able to say to all of you or whoever that I'm listening to or talking to. But it seems pretty clear that if we reverse that chain of access, then we'll get to a place where that's not as harmful as we're at right now. So, and it could mean something like suspending the Cannabis Act. So the government has rushed in and they created a Cannabis Act. It was right in this building that in 2006 I was at the Vienna they created the Vienna Declaration. But at that meeting, the UN said to Canada that it's up to Canada to decide which drugs are on its schedule for health, and it's only up to them. And I brought up cannabis as a harm reduction tool then, and Larry Campbell jumped in and said, well, I think that's a great idea, but we're going to tax the heck out of it. And really, we haven't been able to use cannabis as we haven't been able to realize that potential for that substance. So if you guys were to suspend the Cannabis Act even for a short time and let people grow it, so it'll be legal still, just let people grow it and then create an agency that would be able to collect it. And it's sort of so I've been involved in the decriminalization talks with the city, and it seems to have fallen down at the thresholds. And I was there for those conversations, and my argument was that every time that you get hungry, you don't go to the store, right? So if you're at your house, you're likely to have more than one day's ration on you. So it's really, so that's sort of where it falls down. So if they up the thresholds, and I even heard Health Canada say to the police or the city's application, they asked them, so why don't you just use your own discretion like you are now? And so, but that doesn't really help to just give the police discretionary powers. It would be nicer if we had some actual policies behind it. So in the past 3 years, I started another group in the downtown Eastside. It's Smoke Signals Digital Outreach Hub, and we're all about connecting people. So we've heard a lot of reference to the disconnection, the isolation, the not being connected into services or into the rest of the Canadian system. So our goal with that organization was to connect people with information to COVID in the start, and then as well as provide community safety walks and overdose response. We branched into, because we have a peer force or people with lived experiences that are actually running the place. I'm actually not involved with the place anymore after starting it. I'm on a new project, but I'm really happy that they've, over the past 2 years, they've provided over 19,000 bags of groceries. They've responded to countless overdoses. We've trained a few people, not as many as I would like. But the guys that are with me they're not heavy drug users like with WARS or with the Western Aboriginal Harm Reduction Society. But so the program that I work with now, I work for Backpack and their community engagement and outreach for they're trying to start a new organization. It's a Downtown Eastside Trust Coalition. So in the Downtown Eastside, the SROs we're in danger of losing them to maintenance. We're in danger of losing them to real estate investments, which puts all the people that are living inside that stopgap measure for homelessness, the last stop before they are homeless, in jeopardy. So we've got this coalition of organizations that has come from our COVID project that has agreed to share resources and work together to activate spaces for community, which is my current job right now. But I was thinking about some rapid fire things that solutions, things that people need. Where is it now? Oh, here we go. I was thinking benchmarks in the city. If you're in the alleys, create a benchmark system where emergency responders could know where you exactly are. Opening up communications in single room occupancy hotels and BC housing places where they will be able to use the Lifeguard app or the Doctor of the Day app from FNHA. I think communication and that disconnection is really what we're all, that's where we're suffering, and that's where the deaths will occur. So it sort of almost requires an out-of-the-box solution, eh? And by out-of-the-box, I mean different pools of funding should be allowed to draw into a project. So like for this SRO project that I'm working on, we have a Canadian Housing and Transformation grant, but to make something like that work, the programming where it's tenant-led and SRO tenant controlled or led or managed, that we would need service money to be able to provide the filling in those gaps. Eh? But so creating research projects that would run along safe supply, such as cannabis or poppies, to me, breaking or making it, coming out with an overall statement that we'd like to return to more natural substances. So since Canada has legalized cannabis, we know that a certain amount of people are going to buy legitimate legal weed, and then there's still the black market. We know that both of those sides are suffering, and both of them have a lot of product that isn't getting to people. So since it started, there's been all kinds of concentrates and hashes and shatter juices, things that 20 years ago you would never have seen or heard about. So to me, that signifies that there's a lot of medicine that's just sitting on the shelf, and because of that access and prohibition, that it's created those as well. So if we could free up that access, then maybe we could have a fighting chance. But we could take it away from law enforcement. Law enforcement is confiscating all kinds of product. Why don't we create an agency that will clean the drugs and then give them back to the system to distribute in a safe way, or grow it? Or my biggest thing that like I said, I think we all suffer from the effects of colonialism. It's in everything that we do. When we apply for a house, we have to go through credit checks. When we want to buy groceries, sometimes we're willing to pay money to be able to shop at a place. I'm thinking about like Costco or something. So a lot of these things are extra systems that are just really designed to keep people out, eh? And they're keeping out the people of the downtown Eastside. Since 2016, nearly 10,000 people in BC have lost their lives to fentanyl. So where else would it be okay that a whole city just disappeared within 4 years? So I think we really notice, and we're really feeling the effects of it. But that's why I was thinking an open granting system. I think housing is our biggest chunk that everybody needs, low-income families, or if you're a First Nations person, no matter what nation you're from in BC, we would have a benefit, I think, to opening the granting system for people to actually have a place to live, or a place in Canada. Not sure how I'm doing with time. So a lot of people a lot of people with lived experiences are doing all kinds of works in the trenches. They're coming up with solutions. They're coming up with safe supply projects. They're cleaning in the parks. They're doing outreach, overdose response, teaching naloxone. One of the things that it would be great to create a reward system for those people with lived experiences, and I'm thinking on the lines of Boy Scouts, where if you're facing life on the streets, you could have this manual that would have all these essays of all the different experiences, all the negative things that you face in life, and then we could award merit badges. So people that are training people in naloxone, people that are doing support groups, people that are networking, people that are walking the streets, picking up garbage, providing meals. They're all really kind of the unsung heroes that they're really not getting recognition. They're not getting a job. There's not a lot of equity around. But I'd be happy to see peers break out of harm reduction or right in the substance use world and get into schools and talk to maybe high school students about some of the pitfalls, some of the things that they're going to face. And nowadays, when I was young, you could go out there and experiment with drugs and you could live. But nowadays, you're really you're playing roulette every time, and it's not just down. It's I was a stimulant user and I got down, or heroin. I bought it a few times and I accidentally smoked it once. But if nowadays, if I had gotten that and it was fentanyl, I would just die, because my system wasn't geared for it. If I slowed down, I would be too slow to function. I was more of a speed me up so I can actually work. But that's sort of where I'm at. I don't know if it's a great help to all of you, but I think just an overall getting back to natural substances. If doctors and nurses aren't able or willing to prescribe, then we have to look to nonprofits or user groups to be able to provide a compassionate response, which means procuring it from somewhere. So if they can't get it from the dark web, then they'll have to get it from somewhere. I would like it to be Health Canada or some sort of pharmacological body, but the system is already here to get medicine to people. So I don't understand what the holdup is. I wish we could just have somebody that could safely mix for people.
Thank you, Chris. I have Pam on the phone that has a question. Go ahead, Pam. Go ahead, Pam. Can you hear me? You might be muted.
Hello?
There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris, for your presentation. Very interesting recommendations. I just want you, if possible, could you explain benchmarks in alleyways?
Yes, so GIS positioning, or just longitude and latitude. So they could take that location that's in the middle of the alley, and they could put one of those scanner program, or a little scanner symbol, where you could just scan it, and then the emergency workers will know exactly where you are.
Understood. Thank you so much for explaining.
Yes.
Okay. Susie, you were up next.
Oh, so sorry. I was going to finally get a cup of tea. I see that you're from the Vancouver Aboriginal Policing Centre.
Yeah.
Can you just say a little bit about that, please?
So the Vancouver Aboriginal Community Policing Centre is one of 22 community policing centres across Vancouver, and VACPAC, or Aboriginal Community Policing Centre, provides services to all the Indigenous in Vancouver. So mostly if they deal with police procedures, they're able to talk about that, or if people have complaints, we can point them into the right direction. We also do my boss provides training services to the VPD as well. So kind of implementing or trying to help people be culturally aware. Yes.
Very good. Thank you.
Any other questions, committee members? I was curious about the, you mentioned with the SROs and that getting to people and the communication, but you also mentioned the Lifeguard App. We've been learning a little bit about that, and for me, I just wonder from your perspective, is it something that's a useful tool for people when they're using alone, and what you think about that.
So I don't have a lot of experience with it. I mean, FNHA gave my group smoke signals, which is back run, but gave them a bunch of phones back during the pandemic, and it came with the Dial a Doctor and the Lifeguard app. But I mean, I've heard of other things like having some sort of a chip that would monitor people's. Yeah, it depends how much money you would want to be able to put into it, and I don't know. I think the Lifeguard app would be decent if it was run by a user group, or give them some funding to be able to keep an online user room open. Though I haven't really checked out the Life app myself, but to me it seems like a great idea.
Go ahead, Rana.
Sometimes you just don't know where to begin. But I'll riff off of Nikki's question, because I understand a little bit about the Lifeguard app, and in my community, a user group actually developed their own app, and it had to do with trust. And the fact that you just suggested it be run by a user group, I'm curious if you can just speak to the ability to make progress to prevent overdose deaths through the trust building exercises.
So in my wellness support groups did play a role because I was able to help form wars that really helped my own health as well. But people trust like Vandu or wars, or they'll trust other users. So if they were to come on into this, think of it as like a chat room or a Zoom room for people that are using, that you would get along with the people that are sort of in the same boat. And it could be using, I mean, Vandu already has a supervised injection facility in there. It would just be a matter of connecting it electronically.
Any other
I'm not
questions?
sorry if that answers it or not, or did I answer any?
Yeah, no, it's it's something to think about. Just more of that. How it's not I don't think we're looking at a straight and narrow road here to solutions.
Yeah. So when the supervised injection site Insight started, we had started it actually from a guerrilla site at 327 Carroll. So we had a volunteer nurse, Megan Olson, and then there was Vandu and Wars that were providing kind of managing the chill out space. So these are people from the street that would come in and hang out, and people would use the site, and then they would come in and mix in with the chill out room with the people that are in the community. So it did seem really successful, and it's a peer model. It wasn't, they weren't ready to try it back then either. So, but that's what I always argued was it would be great if Wars had their own indigenous supervised injection site.
Great. Well, I want to thank you, Chris, very much for your presentation, for coming here to give us your perspective. It's been really interesting to hear everything that you have to offer on, and thanks for all the work that you do as well.
Great.
Yeah, and I think that that's the end of this committee's business too as well. So we could have a motion to adjourn, Sonia and then Trevor. Okay, wonderful. Adjourned. Thank you.